Hi, welcome to Tales from the Sky Lounge. It's a podcast about business, consulting, and venture investing. We get out there in the world, we talk to people who are making it happen, and we get their stories. You can like and subscribe. James would be very happy. And he asked me to mention our Speedrun sister playlist, where we go through current breaking AI topics and we give you very practical examples of how to become personally productive in AI. So today's guest in the Sky Lounge, Ted Stone. Hey, Ted, how are you?
If I were any better, Todd, I would have to be you.
That's awesome. Yeah, well, thank you, Ted. It's great having you here. So, first question, who are you and what are you working on?
Uh, I am a career CFO who's found a way to keep doing it long past my sell-by date, working on five really interesting clients, cover an incredible breadth of industries right now.
Wow, very cool. Well, I want to ask you about some of your clients, and we're talking, off the air. You have a lot of contact with private equity, from what I understand. Is that true with some of your clients now? Are you are they earlier stage or later stage, or kind of where are your clients typically in their
One
growth
of
phase?
my longest running client made a $500 million running a private equity fund, and he's now spending it buying up beautiful pieces of property all around from Terra del Fuego to northern Maine, turning them into private parks that he opens to the public for free
Oh wow,
with outdoor education programs on them for free.
wow,
So the dude owns, 500 mountain bikes and 500 sets of cross-country skis and 200 kayaks
wow.
that he moves around and teaches, kids how to get wide-eyed and inspired about the outdoors. So there's a private equity contact. That's where he made his money.
Okay,
Another client that is in the process of doing their exit, and it's going to be a bake-off between a strategic and a private equity firm for who's going to make the founding family rich when they exit their business.
mhm,
Got another client that needs to recapitalize their company. They've got a 51% shareholder that they've kind of agreed, all the things we thought were going to make this make sense, yeah, maybe not so much. Um, so the 51% shareholder wants to get bought out, and we're talking to several private equity firms to manage that process.
okay.
Uh, so yeah, private equity touches my world with some frequency today.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll get into that in just a second. But you just I had a thought while we were sitting here talking, and somebody was talking about the silver tsunami, and so there's the baby boomers, all
Yeah.
started businesses and became successful, and they're looking at, okay, I can't keep doing this forever, and I kind of want to go golfing or mountain biking or skiing. So I think that's a secular trend. I don't know if that you're just lucky to have clients that seem to kind of fall into that. But do you feel like that's a thing? And then are you seeing what do you think
Yeah.
what do you think
I
the consequences of that are, or how should we take advantage of this or think about
come back to this several times because I think there's like 46 different ways of interpreting that question.
it? Okay.
The first thing I thought of when you went to the whole silver tsunami thing is I'm part of it.
Okay.
I'm 72 years old. I should have retired 7 years ago, by quote normal standards.
Hmm.
I love what I do.
Hmm.
And you heard me talk about, my past my sell by date. Yeah, I'm probably never going to have another full-time CFO job, because who hires a guy on Medicare to do that? Uh, but for what I'm doing as a fractional CFO for companies that need the experience but aren't ready to, pay for it 5 days a week, I get all the satisfaction I got as a full-time CFO, and I get it 5 times. It was five different businesses or three different businesses, depending on intensity, and nobody cares.
Hmm. There,
Um, in fact, they kind of look at it as, wow, this is cool. I mean, I'm non-threatening. Yeah, I'm not going to take anybody's job away from him because he'll be dead before that happens. Now, I'm a nice enough guy and I listen well enough and I've heard enough stories I've had enough experiences that when a client is facing an issue, I can say, I've seen that 4 times before. Let's talk about the four different times I saw it. Let's figure out which of those things are relevant to you in your situation, because it's not one size fits all. Let's figure out the answer. Now, I'm getting the satisfaction that I got as a full-time CFO 3 or 4 or 5 times over, and nobody cares that I'm old. And I love to ski, I love to hike, but not 365 days of the year. So I'm never going to stop doing this. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just
Well, you hear about, the folks that worked in corporate America, had a pretty good career, rose up the ranks to mid, upper middle management, and then retired, played golf for about 3.5 months, and then keeled over it, 6 months because they just didn't have anything left to live for, right?
yeah,
And then
yeah.
nobody wants to do that.
When you get to that age, you will retirement. I've studied this, and a couple of groups I'm part of have studied this in a more systematic way than any one person does. You need at least three things to be happy and successful in retirement. Physical health, financial health, and a reason to get out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, if that reason is I'm trying to take points off my handicap, great. If that reason is I just take pleasure in watching bright young financial professionals grow up to become full scope CFOs, or I like helping companies that are struggling to figure out why they're struggling, fix it, and grow again. Uh, that's fun too.
Yeah.
That's the purpose. It goes like this. I think the CFO's job is to help everybody else in the company do their jobs better because they've got the right information at the right time in a format that makes sense to them with analytical support to help them torture the numbers. Um, if they need it, even if they don't know they need it at first, that you want to get to the place where the CFO, whenever anybody's got a question about some analytical report they're looking at, talk to Ted. He's going to have some insights on this. And the fun that I get is going into a business with a bunch of really bright, hardworking people who are kind of ticked off and frustrated because the business just isn't doing very well. And depending on how long a sales cycle is, anywhere from 3 months to 18 months later, you give those same bright, hardworking people the right information at the right time. They make better decisions. The business does better. And 3 to 18 months later, the business is doing better, and they come in, they've got a spring in their step. I'm not ticked off and frustrated anymore. This is kind of cool. Look what I did. And watching that happen and knowing that I had something to do with it is why I'm still doing this, 7 years after normal retirement age, and why I'm never going to stop doing it. I just wrapped up with a client, literally yesterday, and got this really nice note from the CEO. Kevin is ready to fly without you. Um, Thank you so much. You've taken us through this, and this. That's probably going to turn into a case study on our website.
Speaking of the microphone. Yeah.
um, that's the fun of this.
Yeah.
It's watching the people grow. The finance people grow, and then watching all the people around them just find going to work is more fun when all the pieces are fitting together.
Yeah.
It's, as I said, I mean, it's hard enough to be challenging, rewarding enough to be rewarding. So why would I ever stop doing it?
Yeah. Well, and that in our company, in our capacity as fractional executives, it's kind of, the gig economy. Everybody talks about the gig economy. It's kind of sort of what it is. But, I had a conversation this morning with a young guy that was starting at a company, and he said, you can't and should not afford me full time as a full time CTO, but boy, he sure needs me for some foundational things to get off the ground. Having seen it, dozens of times, I know exactly what he needs. He has no idea, but he knows he needs help. That gets you up in the morning, regardless of how much you get paid for it.
And back to that first thing, it's called Butler Parklands as the client.
Okay.
It's a not-for-profit. He's never going to raise money. He's just endowed the not-for-profit with the money that he made owning and running this private equity firm. I've been there since July of 2018, and I'm in our business plan through 26 at least. Now, we've got a full-time controller on the team. She's great.
Mhm.
an accounting team that's great, and we check in every week, how we doing, and inevitably one of those weekly check-ins turns into a, hey, I need to, we're struggling with this, what do you know about it?
Mhm.
You know, we're now in the middle of, yeah, as I said, the guy's built parks from southern Patagonia to northern Maine. He's got $100 million of physical assets in the field.
Wow.
Uh, and gosh, shouldn't we have a fixed assets tracking system so that we can have
Yeah.
constant maintenance program for that?
Yeah.
Well, we just finished putting in a modern, accounting system from Sage Intact, and
Mhm.
now we're kicking off the project of activating the fixed asset module within it so that we can do long range planning of maintenance needs for all of these parks.
Mhm.
Uh, so that's more than an hour a week. That's turned into a project.
Right.
We're
Right.
gonna finish that, and then we're gonna move into something else. Uh,
And super valuable. You've done it once or probably a bunch
yeah,
of times, and you go, oh,
a
you fix
couple of
asset tracking
ERPs
program.
in the course of my career.
Mhm.
Now, and why I went down that rabbit hole is, I just got back from one of their parks in Maine. Um, where can you ride a mountain bike to 15 miles away from the nearest road on what it's called crusher fine is the surface that he puts on all his trails. It's like what you would find on an old fashioned track with the old cinder tracks.
Mhm.
Now, 14 miles, 10 feet wide, where you can take a baby stroller.
Wow.
Through and other than that path, it's the wild woods of northern Maine.
Wow. Wow. Some scary bears up there, from what I understand, right?
Uh, yeah, and they've probably figured it out too. And at the end of the 14 miles, there's a warming hut. So when you get there on your cross country skis, and it's a warming hut like something you would see at Deer Valley, Utah,
Oh, wow.
ski area.
Nice.
Um, I just, he's just, how can you not get excited about something like that? Of getting youth excited about being outdoors, exercising aerobically. And I can run, every client I've got, I can kind of like, wow, isn't it cool to be able to help these people run their business better?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, kind of coming back to the question you asked me to ask 42 times. So personally,
Yep.
I think this is a trend, right? So people aren't people aren't people want to slow down and maybe shift gears into something else, but they're not going to stop, right? So there's interesting, not probably not a second wind, but a 10th wind of your career. We're gonna watch that segment. What are people who've been successful going to do now that they're not running a business day to day? They're going to start something interesting and do something kind of cool,
Yep.
with their experience and their resources. They're not going to just go, move to Sarasota and play golf, probably.
Uh,
That's kind of
I,
cool.
I
What?
wasn't thinking it when I started down the Butler Parkland story, but Gilbert Butler, the founder of this firm, turns 88 next week.
Okay.
So Silver Tsunami, I mean, he's not even a baby boomer. He's greatest generation stuff.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Now, it went from a mile a minute running a private equity firm to a mile a minute building parks.
Yeah.
Uh, and that's his purpose in life.
Sure.
You
Eh,
know, and it's kept him young.
So, do you think? I guess kind of the first thing I thought of was, there's people that want to slow down. There's going to be a lot of businesses for sale or
Hmm.
takeover. Is this going to spur a lot of maybe M&A activity from private equity? An opportunity there, or is it going to be? I get a lot of inbound on LinkedIn from people want me to buy a franchise or buy a business.
Yeah, yeah.
Is that going to be like we
Well,
haven't seen that
yeah,
a lot, but are individuals just going to go and purchase these businesses, or is there some kind of interesting opportunity there? Do you think?
I all over the place. I mean, every private. I'm going to exaggerate to make the point. Every private equity firm I know has a roll-up strategy for a bunch of small consulting businesses or small something businesses that grew up. Uh, when something happened in the late 60s or early 70s, somebody in their 20s at that time founded and started a business. Now they're ready to exit.
Mm-hmm.
You can buy those businesses for 4 times EBITDA. You put them together, it becomes $200 million in revenue, and now you can sell it for 8 times EBITDA.
Oh, wow.
Um, So, it- and it's driven by this excess of the supply of small businesses that need to get sold.
Yeah. Like
You know,
HVAC, dentist,
yep. Well, and
plumber.
few years back, it was Arisa Consultants.
Okay.
Yeah, Arisa went in place in their 1974, I think, and a whole lot of insurance salespeople and other folks early in their careers at that point set up their little Arisa consulting firms. Uh, Reached retirement age late in the last century or early in this century, and there were at least three that I know of roll-ups of let's pull all of those things together because everyone develops a little bit differently. Some had a wealth management piece, some had a tax planning piece, some had a pension management piece. Put 30 of those together, and learn from each other, and you create something that's way bigger, way more valuable. I actually had a client taking advantage of the same thing with pool service companies.
Hmm.
The guy that comes, not the people that install your pool, but the people that come every week and you know, rake out the bottom, make sure the pH is right, minor repairs. Uh, it's another one of those businesses that lots of people got into when they were in their 20s because it was really easy to get into the business. Now they're in their 60s or 70s and they want to sell.
Hmm.
And these are anywhere from a $2 million to $10 million business.
Hmm.
And this company is now, last I checked with Gary, I think he's up to 15 of them. A little
Hmm.
over $75 million run rate,
Hmm.
getting back office synergies. Don't have to have 15 billing departments. One will do, thank you. Um, I buy a hell of a lot more chemical now, so I get way better pricing on the chemicals. Uh,
Yeah.
and he's 15 families who built businesses and wanted to go do something else. He's given them the retirement fund for them to go do that.
Wow.
Yeah, it's happening.
And then, so we talk about, you know, economic conditions, so, there's kind of like a three gears in the growth curve. You have like, friends and family, angel investment, and then you kind of had that venture capital, and then you
Yep.
have private equity, kind of at the late stage. Um, you know, maybe we talk about like conditions on the ground. I haven't seen very much venture activity. Like something weird happened like 2020, 21, 22, and the interest rates started going up, and then like everything kind of got out of whack, it seems like. And then I don't know what happened in the venture, but I definitely see all this stuff going on in private equity kind of cleaning up mature companies, and they seem to have a lot of dry powder. What do you see it differently, or can you add any color to that?
Um, I see it some, mostly through other partners in the New York metro area. I'm the managing partner for our New York practice. 20 of us in total, 12 of us are CFOs. So I've got 11 other CFOs seeing this, and some of them have venture-backed businesses or businesses that are trying to raise venture money. Uh, and people are adjusting. I mean, the venture capital world went crazy in the early years of the pandemic. With
Mhm.
really big checks. Interest rates were still zero or close to it. Um, as that's shifted in the last 2 or 3 years, yeah, it's you now need venture capitalists to remember that when money's not free, you know, the math that you do to figure out if this is a good investment begins to change.
Mhm.
Um,
Are we back to profits matter? Revenue matters.
yeah, I think so, except in a couple of areas. All the biotech stuff, everybody knows you're not going to make a nickel until you've got a commercial product.
Mhm.
Uh, so yeah, that engine's continued. It ebbs and flows, but it hasn't stopped from what I've seen. Uh, yeah, obviously AI, you don't have to make money. You just need to attract eyeballs and show better, response scores, reduced error rates, that kind of stuff.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not a piece of my practice, but what I see is that it's changing, but not drastically. Just, yeah, people are raising their standards.
So wouldn't be a podcast without saying the word AI. So there's this kind of weird thing going on where I think you see a lot of companies laying off and then laying off and then laying off. It feels to me like the .com boom and bust did, where it's just kind of like we're just trying to survive until the next kind of uptick. But then some people come in and they say, oh, AI is going to eat everybody's jobs. I kind of don't think that's happening, but I do think people are retooling in some interesting ways. Do you have a theory on that? Is this a secular downturn? Are we going to see some gains here in the short term from optimization?
I'm putting two questions together there.
Yeah,
I think the economy, I think, is probably headed for a slowdown. I'm
really.
not sure it's actually going to turn to negative.
Okay.
I don't think it's driven by AI. I think it's driven by all the other things that are driving uncertainty in the market.
Right.
Now, what I'm what I'm seeing with several of my clients is that the AI is just helping them go to market way more intelligently,
Yeah.
or offer a way cooler service offering to their clients.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I have a client that does institutional medical second opinions focused only on serious and complex diseases. So, if your doctor tells you need a knee replacement, that ain't us. Um, if you've got some form of pulmonary cancer and you want a second opinion on that, that's us. And it's not, Dr. Merrill is smarter than Dr. Stone. It's the pulmonary oncology department at Mass General Hospital, Dana-Farber, is going to pull together a cancer panel.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to have 6 different physicians looking at your cancer from all of their different perspectives. 25% of the time we change the diagnosis, the initial diagnosis. 75% of the time we change the treatment plan.
Oh.
And we have to translate some really sophisticated research scientists' opinions about, okay, this is why we think that this is the correct diagnosis and the correct treatment plan. We have to then translate that to, a really sick, 52-year-old father of 4
Mm-hmm.
who just got this really horrible diagnosis. Now, and we're using AI to take that really sophisticated thing and say, restate this for a 52-year-old metal worker with a high school education. And that gives us the script for our nurses to explain to the guy. And after they've had that call, a transcript of, this is what we said. And the feedback we get is, I take this list that you gave me into every doctor's appointment as I go through the treatment plan to make sure I'm asking the right questions.
Mm-hmm.
I've got another prospective client who's built an iPhone app. Plunk it down on the table while you're talking to your oncologist or whatever. Records what he said, uses AI to translate it into, these are the 4 critical things he said. These are the 3 next steps you've agreed to, and helps you book the next appointment. He's not taking anybody's job away.
No.
But he's vastly improving the service that oncologist in that hypothetical case can deliver.
Yeah.
Probably improving an outcome.
Mm-hmm.
And by improving outcomes, probably saving some, statistically, some fraction of lives. Yeah, that's pretty neat stuff.
Yeah, it's on the margin. I think there's a lot of creative things that are now going to come to market that might not have made sense, or might have been too difficult or too weird or technical. Yeah. That now the barrier to getting that into reality is like diminished. So why wouldn't you do something like that? And now we can have a conversation just looking at each other, talking about, like humans, and then not have to worry about taking detailed notes. And then, boy, that's a win. That wasn't happening before in any way.
Right.
I'm hopeful that we're going to see a renaissance of a million little flowers blooming with all these little things that can turn into big things.
Yeah. You're probably on some of the same news feeds I am. There was one today that Y Combinator is just, they're soliciting now for their next class. And one of the things that they're specifically looking for is the next 10-person, $100 billion valuation company.
100 billion.
Yeah,
Wow. It's not a billion unicorn. It's a hundred
yeah.
X.
10 people
Okay.
leveraging AI to, create billions of dollars of value per employee, rather than, if you can get millions per
Hmm.
employee, pretty good.
So
Uh,
so
yeah,
I'm seeing that pressure on the early stage investors now, where in order to get any kind of serious institutional money attention, they're now expecting you as table stakes to get to a million ARR with AI,
yeah,
doing
but
whatever it is you do. And
yeah,
then I want to see, a hockey stick, within 18 months, and then ideally an exit within literally 24 to 36 months. Is like I sat in a Southeast Investor forum like 2 weeks ago, and that's literally what they said. We're not going to do a deal unless I got to put one round of money in, and you're going to exit within 2 to 3 years. I thought, good Lord, like
yeah,
that's the that's the pressure, and so yeah, you better have 10 guys in a shop and leverage the heck out of AI and have a story to get to 100 billion, not just a billion.
yeah.
This is nuts.
I'm hoping that particular VC was just toward the end of their contract period with their LPs, so they needed an in and out fast because, yes, it allows you to scale really quickly, but what about the business that takes 6 years?
Hmm. I
Uh,
Yeah, I think he
yeah,
was, that particular set of folks was tired because they had 10 and 12-year, 15-year portfolio holds as a first
you get
money in,
yeah, and an LP contract is typically 10 years, and you can extend it once or twice to get it out to 12 years, but then you got to give them their money back.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you're 2 years away from, geez, we got to give them their money back, uh, you
Yeah.
have a different perspective on investments than if you're in your first 1 or 2 years of the LP deal.
Yeah. Um, you had some phenomenal private equity stories through your career. You want to share a couple of them with us? You
Um,
want
sure. Do you have one in particular you like?
to, so Velocity Express, you want to talk about that one?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's a best of both worlds experience. Majority owned by a private equity firm, but publicly traded.
Oh, wow.
So
Oh, wow.
had all the pleasures of quarterly earnings calls and 10Ks and 10Qs and 8Ks every time somebody got a cold.
Oh, man.
Uh, with a private equity, we got to build for an exit.
Mhm.
Um, and it probably was sort of an early version of the silver tsunami thing. They'd been rolling up last mile delivery providers all over the country. And FedEx and UPS and the Postal Service obviously do last mile delivery. But this was the specialized last mile delivery for, it's got to be delivered, not before 10 o'clock or not. It's got to be delivered in a window between 10 and 10:30. Um, so a lot of pharmacies use that,
Okay.
or Staples.com was our biggest customer, actually. The use case for that is that you're sitting there, at 10 o'clock at night, and you've got a presentation that you got to deliver the next morning, and oh crap, the printer's empty.
Mhm.
The ink has run out. You go to Staples.com, you place the order, and you don't trust the receptionist, to pick up the packet from FedEx and bring it back to you. So you click the button on Staples.com to pay an extra $5 to have the driver bring the package to your office.
Wow.
Um, and that's a valuable service. Um, but if UPS did that, they'd never make their 100 deliveries a day because the drivers would be wandering around office building looking for Todd's office.
Mhm.
Um, so we did that. Lots of it, low barriers to entry, so lots of people did it in their area. Um, but Staples doesn't want to deal with 100 different local people. They want to have one place they can go and cover the whole damn country.
Right.
Uh, so we built this up. The private equity firm it funded it, built it up, took it public. Yeah, but never integrated all the businesses. So it was just
Oh, man.
24 businesses like this. Um, and they didn't have enough geographic coverage to be a one-stop shop for everybody else. Somebody else had done the same thing, built up a company, dozens of predecessor companies, built up, not integrated. Let's buy them, integrate the whole thing. We'll have nationwide scale. We've done the geographic mapping to say this fills in the holes in each of our maps. Uh, they'd been trying to do this thing for, gosh, 3 years before I got there. They'd been through their series A, B, C, D, all the way up to the letter P,
Oh
preferred
God.
stock. Um, hadn't made money. They'd had 4 CFOs in the previous 24 months.
Oh wow.
Um, and I went there and in February, got my arms around it. Um, we closed on the financing in June, the acquisition in July, dove into the integration. You know, by Q1 of the following year, we were profitable just because the integration plan had worked.
Mhm.
Um, it was just, as you might, it was a pretty intense period between February and July.
Mhm.
We raised our series, it was 125 million bucks that we raised through our Series Q preferred stock and a convertible bond and a bank line. Um,
Yeah.
and the other company we were buying was a public company. And there was some personal animosity between the two CEOs.
Oh geez.
Um, so I was in the room where you've done a few deals in the course of your career, and we'll figure out what we do with curse words in podcasts. Uh,
Yeah.
one of the calls ended up with a "fuck you"
Yeah.
click,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the deal survived the "fuck you"
Oh
and
man.
ultimately closed.
Oh
Um,
wow.
don't Obviously a very intense period of time,
Sure.
and no,
And, and
for
you're a
a lot.
fly on the wall as a CFO. You get to be in all these meetings, but you don't have to take the slings and arrows, but you have to kind of dodge them sometimes, right?
Um,
That's got to be
and,
exciting.
and wing a few, and yeah, I mean the CEO and I, had he was so grateful to finally have a CFO. Remember, he's been through 4 CFOs in the previous 2 years. To finally have a CFO that could stand with him, reinforce the points that he needed to make, amplify where he needed to be amplified, pick up the pieces if he said something dumb without making him look bad.
Mhm.
Um, and all of those things contributed to our getting the deal done. Um, and then all the people on the other side, had to, you know, began to figure out, maybe he's a guy we could talk to.
Mhm.
Maybe that's a way to get the message across that the bankers are struggling with. Um, and and I became the back channel for some of that stuff as well. Going in both directions.
Gosh, diplomacy, right? In those situations, somebody's got to have the back channel to Russia. so,
Well,
um,
yeah.
and,
So
and it's always people problems, that kind of derails a lot of that stuff, right? And
yeah.
even like the
Uh,
integration, you probably had one or two like kind of friction
uh,
points.
the integration was a very successful failure. Um, the finance piece of it all came together, standardized processes across 106 locations all around the country, people voluntarily complying with this, embracing, we're all going to do this the same way. Um, we didn't do that on our sales and operations side. It was much more my way or the highway. Um, and we drove a substantial fraction of revenue out of the company because these are all these mom and pop guys that sold into us.
Mhm.
They still belong to the same country club and the same Rotary Club.
Mhm.
And they'd say, crap, I'll just go, set up another business. I don't want to put up with this BS.
Mhm.
I'll go set up another business and I'll take, 40% of my clients, are all members of the Rotary Club with me.
Mhm.
Well, I'll go over and do that. Now, had we done the same kind of get everybody actively involved from both of the finance teams in my case, we do it this way, we do it this way. We've always been frustrated about this. Yeah, we too, finding the right way together, um, got buy-in from all the people on both sides that, yeah, we really can do this. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be when we started. It wasn't what my counterpart on the other company thought it was going to be when we got started. Yeah, but it was better. Uh, so that the whole change management piece and alignment of people piece that you were referring to, that's it worked in the finance and back office side. It didn't work so well in the sales and operations side. Um, so thank God we got back to profitability in a big damn hurry.
Hmm.
And then we had to stay profitable as the revenue went away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we
Well,
did.
yeah, and it's sometimes you just have to take your lumps and then get past it, and then if there's kind of friction on personalities that are going to hold you back,
Yeah.
go ahead and take the hit and move on.
Yeah. And that's a legit conversation. Um, you do have to put your foot down sometimes.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Wow.
yeah. So when do you put your foot down and when do you collaborate, compromise, find the way forward? Um, if you get too focused on compromising, you'll never get anything done.
So there's an interesting piece here with people. So you got mom and pa, on a couple $1 million business, nice little business, and they all roll up. There's how do you what's the spot for somebody like that that suddenly went from hey, let's take Friday off and go water skiing, or to now you have quarterly financial reports. It's a totally different culture.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
it's got to be shocking. Do they stick around? Do you find that some of them can grow into the new organization, or you just kind of say, "Hey, we'd love to have you around. You know, you're not in charge anymore."
Yeah. A lot of that you have to kind of address says me. You
Hmm.
need to address that hypothetically before the deal
Yeah.
of is this is going to change. Being owned by a private equity firm is different from being owned by you and your husband. Um, and these are what the differences look like. Um, we'd love to have you because you've got these relationships, you've got these skill sets, people respect you and like to work for you, all the reasons why you might want somebody to stick around, but you can't do it the way you used to because we've got new owners that have expectations and ways of doing things, and they've just put a lot of money in your pocket. So we'd love you to adapt to doing things their way, and we'll help you. Uh, but if you don't want to, either don't sell to us, or figure out a way to achieve your objectives where we achieve ours.
Mhm.
Uh, it's
Just be
easy to do.
honest.
Yeah, it's easy to do hypothetically. And third to the last full-time gig, I worked with a partner to develop an investment thesis to consolidate the custom market research industry.
Hmm.
You know, three major players, a bunch of mid-size, and then this really long tail of little companies. Elaine had done this twice before for two of the three big ones, rolling up a lot of little ones to create a service line. Um, and she said, I want to do this for myself this time. Now, so we put this deal together. We had three companies, all very interested. Um, got a private equity firm backing us, and then we got into it very clear. It's Elaine's vision. She's going to be the CEO. And then we got to exchanging term sheets, and it was like, oh, wait a minute, you meant me. I'm
Yeah.
now I
Uh,
know that.
oh no.
So it's one thing to have the hypothetical conversation when it gets really concrete.
Right.
You're going to take your 15 million bucks for selling the business to us, but you're not going to be in charge anymore. You're going to
Right.
be part of the team,
Right. If you
and
want to
here's what
be
it looks
or not.
like if you want to be. Well,
Right.
and in this case, I mean, the deal wasn't done yet, so we just they backed out of the deal. Said, "Hey, I'm perfectly happy running my own business. Why would I sell to something else? No matter how compelling the business is, I like what I'm doing."
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
It's a
so
hard thing to be the big cheese to go, to a member of the team and not in charge.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we did that twice before we finally just said, "Yeah, we'll let somebody else figure this one out," and both went out and found other jobs.
So, Velocity Express, that was cool. Bunch of little companies, roll them up, create efficiencies where you streamlined back office departments.
Yeah,
Obvious play there. Let's talk about a contrast deal. The What was the one? What's the executive, the office telephone
Yeah,
company you were telling me about?
tone. Yeah.
Okay.
Another public company, three businesses. The core business had been what's referred to as CPE, customer premise equipment. Yeah, when offices had office phone networks, with a switchboard, a receptionist in the front of it, blah blah blah, and then call centers that came out of that. That's what they did. Um, some of that technology they ported into hospital environments for the nurse call system. You're sitting in your bed and you want the nurse to show up, and they won't answer the button that you keep pushing.
Mhm.
Uh, and then out of their call center business, they created call centers for lottery organizations. A lot of Native American lottery organizations. And as the internet came along, this is in the late '90s. Um, people started saying, well, why 1-800 lottery? How about elottery.com?
Yeah.
Now, so they started one of the very first people to think through how do I create an environment where people want to make their lottery picks online, comply with the regulations in each state where they're authorized. Uh, and in the late 1990s, that was a pretty cool place to be.
Yeah. Three
Uh,
very different businesses.
Yeah, and one was pretty exciting. Now, the two equipment businesses were losing money,
Hmm.
so the board brought in a new CEO who determined that the previous CFO was not the guy he could work with well, so brought me in. We turned around the two businesses, the healthcare equipment business and the telecommunications equipment business, sold them to larger players in the industry, and instead of having to go out and do an IPO for eLottery, we just gave a pile of money,
Yeah. Okay.
having sold the other businesses.
Wow.
Now, and we spent the better part of a year as a top 10 Yahoo Finance chat board with all
Wow.
the excitement about, this company is going to be emerging. It's really cool company buried in this, legacy old technology business.
Mhm.
But think of the great things that are going to happen when that's done. Yeah. So we got it done. In order to get it done, we found a buyer for the telecom business pretty quickly. Yeah, didn't find a buyer for the healthcare business, but I was pretty jazzed about it.
Mhm.
So I put together a group of management. We went out and found a private equity firm to back us to be the buyers of the healthcare business.
Okay.
Now, now we brought that deal to the board, and the board did what they had to do. It's a public company board; they've got to be responsible to the shareholders. They took our offer and just shopped it back to everybody else who had said no, thank you before.
Uh,
And one of them was a Fortune 100 company, and they came in with $1 more than our bid and no
ah.
financing contingency.
Okay.
I got it sold. The business got sold.
Yeah.
The funding was unavailable for eLottery. Um, and we'd hired a CFO for eLottery at that point, so that I could focus on leading the healthcare buyout. Um, and they went off and they're not one of the survivors of that whole. There were a lot of really cool internet companies that didn't get through it. They either got consolidated or gazumped by somebody else.
Mhm.
They were one of them. Took them a few years before it happened, but um, it was a really fun time. To be in the top 10 on Yahoo Chat, and
Yeah.
and
That's a,
not be able to log in and answer because God knows, you don't want the officers of a public company getting into a chat room
do not touch. Yeah.
with a bunch of individual investors. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
You got to be super careful. So if the first one was a roll up, what do you call this? What's that play where you take an existing business and you spin out? Is it a
yeah.
spin out or is it
Close
what's the
enough.
term?
Yeah, close enough.
Okay.
Um, break down, sell off. We found the piece that was most valuable and it got it funded.
Yeah. Polishing the gem, I guess.
Yeah. Yep.
And then spinning out sectors. And you never know, right? You never know which one of the pieces of the business is going to make it
Yeah.
or be valuable for whatever reason. It's kind of fun. It's fun to think about these little chunks. They're like little Legos you snap together and make something really cool and then bust it apart and,
You
do
can.
something again.
Yeah.
Um, you had another one, Solution, that sounded pretty fun.
Yep. That was all about culture.
Okay.
Yeah. Four companies that a private equity firm had partnered with others to roll together, all serving information needs of hospitals.
Mhm.
Some their marketing needs, how do I segment, how many people with this disease state in my service area, how do I reach them? One with clinical needs, what's the right treatment to produce the best outcomes? Some with operational financial needs, how do I organize treatment plans in a way to make some money on this procedure, this procedure, this procedure? Uh, all off working off much of the same data. And there's the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, has a form where they collect all this data, and it's publicly available. Anybody can get it. You and I can download it and put it on our laptop. But the analysis of it and repurposing of it, it's at a time when terabytes were considered big.
Mhm.
We had 17 of them.
Wow.
Uh,
Okay.
four completely different cultures. You had one that was all about client service, one that was all about really cool analytical interface so you could really torture the numbers and do this stuff. We had one that was all about the quality of the data is just pristine, no errors in there whatsoever. It's a Six Sigma company. Another one that was nobody's got a bigger database than this one. Uh, how do those four cultural approaches to the market merge together?
Mhm.
Well, it got the leaders from all those businesses together and literally locked ourselves in a conference room for a week. With me sort of providing, and here's the financial returns that we're seeing in all of these things, and just what we can afford to pay, and this is what the investment thesis says we need to earn, in order to stay in the good graces of our private equity backers, um, and started picking, the best of here, the best of here. Um, I think we did actually move a couple of people from company A to company C,
Yeah.
start cross fertilizing. Um, the CEO and I, had offices in four different cities around the country, so that we could kind of be the corporate bumblebees of making sure culture came together.
Yeah.
Um, and over the next couple of years, it did. Um, you know, Exceeded our profit goals, exceeded our new growth goals. Um, Vast improvements in our renewal case. All of these companies, had problems with not getting people to renew,
Mhm.
3-year contract, and you want to be embedded in the way a client uses your product so they can't not do business with you.
Right.
And we weren't doing that very well. None of the companies were doing that very well. Um, but we got way better at it. Our renewal rate went from the high 50s to the high 80s, over the next 3 years as it took a whole bunch of cost savings from merging all these businesses together and vastly ramped up our new product spending,
Mhm.
um, so that we could do what I just said, create a product that's so embedded that the client just can't imagine doing business without us.
Yeah. So that's another strategy, right? It's a intentional roll up, strategic, put together.
Yep.
We did one of those. I was in one of the tiny little companies that was like 10 million, and then the acquiring company came in and they did that PowerPoint of here's why we're buying you,
Hmm.
and then here's the next three that we got to figure out,
Yep.
and your pie piece goes here,
Yep.
and this is what we're doing. Everybody in, and then everybody kind of went, oh yeah, that's really cool. We can help you, and then a couple people maybe don't belong or they wish they were in company C, D, or E,
Yep.
and that I think the cross pollination is super important. You kind of
Yeah.
you can't be an island, right?
Now, I
Yeah,
did
I
not
mean,
deal together. The CFO with the company, that was there when the company was put together, with the CEO who was there when the company was put together. Both were
mhm,
pushed out after a year. And again, I came in, the board put in a new CEO. He said, I need a different CFO to get done. And that's so yeah, they were a year into not getting this integration done before Chuck and I joined, and put it back together.
yeah, that's so cool. And then it kind of worked out, and then you go organic, and now you're a nice mid-sized company
Yep.
who can grow
Company was
organically.
ultimately sold to Thomson Reuters,
Okay,
to Thomson Reuters Health, and the PE firm got a decent return.
wow, very cool. Yeah, so it's like three different ways PE works in it. So like PE is not like venture. They're going to invest. You know what the play is, right? They're going to invest. They catch you early, invest a bunch of money,
Mhm.
get you to go fast, and then sell to somebody, a
Yep.
corporate or a go public maybe that used to be a thing. But like private equity, there's all kinds of cool things, and they all talk to each other and buy and sell for different
Yeah.
reasons. It's kind of
No,
fascinating.
I've got a current client with TechCXO where they have a director of finance.
Mhm.
My real role with them is she's a first time top finance person. We'll call her CFO, but that's not her title, and and it shouldn't be her title yet because although she's the top finance person, she's not a full scope strategic CFO. That's my job to help her get there. But in the meantime, they have a 51% shareholder that they brought in back in 2018, with a strategic in the industry, with some really neat ideas about the synergies that a strategic in the industry could bring to this farther down the food chain, engineering driven company.
Hmm.
Uh, but it hasn't worked out. The Certainly the pandemic, kind of kicked a lot of things around. So 7 years later, they've kind of agreed, if you could get somebody to buy us out for what we put into the company back in 2018, we'd like to do that. Now, and the 49% owner, who's one of the founders, said, I'd like to have a partner in here that's actually doing all the cool stuff we talked about years ago.
Yeah,
Uh,
better partner.
yeah.
Not
Um,
the wrong. It's not that anybody's good or bad. It's just not a fit, right?
yeah. Yep.
So,
Um, so we're in the process of figuring out how are we going to recapitalize the 51% shareholder.
mhm.
Um, and there's another private equity firm that's rolling up. The company does what's known as building management systems. The systems behind the scenes that keep your office a nice, comfortable 72 degrees, even when it's 98 outside or when it's 10 below zero outside. So regulating all the various HVAC equipment, lighting, elevators, other plug loads. Um, yeah, they're pretty sophisticated systems. Um, and there's a lot of small companies that do it. The equipment comes from a few big ones: Honeywell, Johnson Controls, Siemens. Major companies sell the equipment, but they don't do the installations in the buildings. They've got this whole network of folks the size of my client, anywhere from 10 to 75 million bucks. But there's a private equity firm now who's rolling them up. They started in Europe. They bought their first U.S. company a year ago, and they're looking at my client as potentially being the second U.S. company in that roll up. Um, in that case, I don't think it's going to work.
Mhm.
The terms of it, you know, they're a control investor. They're not interested in sharing. They want the CEO of my client to be a shareholder, but a 20% shareholder in his company or a 5% shareholder in the parent company.
Mhm.
Um, and we've worked out the economics. It's not a good deal my client. So now we're now looking at an ESOP.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, I've introduced them to an investment bank that specializes in ESOPs. Do like 50 or 60 a year.
Wow.
Yeah. So they've got a playbook for if this, go this way on your ESOP playbook. If that, go this other way.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, ESOPs have with a lot of people, ESOPs have this reputation as kind of too damn hard, and you don't get as much money, and so on and so forth. And because every company has so many its own individual things that are important to them, um, yeah, one of the phrases that the guys at this particular bank have talked about is, if you've done one ESOP, you've done one ESOP. You don't
Yeah. Right. Yeah. It's all
you don't know
messy.
about ESOPs. You know
Right.
about the one you did.
Yeah.
These guys have been doing 50 or 60 a year for 10 years. They've done a lot.
Yeah.
Um, and we've sat down with them and we've worked out, okay, we got to buy out the 51% holder early. They want their money now.
Hmm.
So the first tranche of the ESOP refinancing needs to go to them. Um, and then we've got to line up the bank financing, to make that happen. on terms that the business can live with so they can pay it back and go out and refinance it 2 years from now, and start distributing money to the other shareholders and start distributing shares to the employees.
Right.
Um, that's been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But we're early days in it right now. We've just signed an NDA and we're filling a data room, and they're going to come back to us in early September with all the conditions that you've described that you want. I think your ESOP's going to look like this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I have a
but
buddy that's doing that now. You know, he had a kind of, uh, I don't want to name names, but you know, a blue collar kind of business that did pretty well, double digit millions a year. A couple of them were in partnership, and then they did ESOP, and then you know, set growth goals.
yeah,
You know, so they're kind of in that early couple years where the employee, and then you go in the office, and all the employees are just like, "Hey, how's it going? Here's my card. What can I do for you?" You know, it's neat, and they felt
right.
like, you know, all these people have been working with them for so long, like they wanted to share, but they kind of also wanted to exit, and then it was like it's a really neat, you know, it's a neat kind of middle ground where, you know, we're not selling to some soulless private equity on the West
Yep,
Coast or
yep,
Boston or some weird place they've never been to, but you know, the founders, Bubba's still around, you know, and that's
yep,
good, right? And we're going to grow, and then everybody's going to go a piece of it, and then at the same time, the cash, you know, exits for the founders who've spent decade, you know, building this up, and then need a little breathing room.
you
It's
bet.
just it's a good thing.
This one fits so beautifully with what my client's trying to accomplish that he's in his mid 60s now.
Mm-hmm.
He's kind of in the same boat as I am, is he loves running this business. He doesn't want to retire anytime soon,
Mm-hmm.
but he also knows that he's not immortal and that someday he will need to retire. Um, and he frankly couldn't retire from the business now because too much of it runs through him. Which is a piece of my assignment there is to help build up the rest of the leadership team so that the business can run without him. Uh, and this is now creating kind of a 5 to 7 year glide path to his transferring ownership to the people that helped him build the business. Uh, and inspiring those people. They're on their way to becoming owners and probably have the same experience that you saw in your buddy's company.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's creating optionality for him as he goes along. Is how long do I want to stick with this? You know, um, creating accountability for his people. We better hit these numbers so we can pay back that loan so that this good thing can happen for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
For us, right?
Well, for both,
Yeah,
that's right. For the company, us, and for me personally.
right.
One of the problems of a lot of founder-driven businesses is you're asking people to work their buns off to make that guy rich.
Yes.
Well, wouldn't it be cooler if I were working my buns off to make that guy rich and me a little bit rich?
Yeah. Yeah. We all get a taste. Yeah.
Yeah.
A much
So
better culture.
it's
Yeah.
I'm excited about it. Now it's been a lot of fun, and it's a day a week for me.
Mhm.
Just helping the director of finance kind of learn what she needs to do to support this stuff, being a thought partner for the CEO. What about this question? What about that question? On the deal, and helping him with, how should we deal with this operational issue? So we're about to spend a day, at an offsite that I'll be invited to along with a fractional CHRO to plot strategy for the next 30 months, through the
Nice.
end of 27.
So I
So
want to ask you about, you know, something you did earlier in your career, the executive forum. You know,
yeah,
so like that seems like something you stuck with, and that's a peer group. I find that those things are super valuable. You want to kind of opine on your experience?
yeah, love to. The group was founded in 1995. I joined in April of 98 when I was leaving Thomson Corporation. Uh, Group's founded on three principles. It The only people who are in it are C-level executives who have been C-level executives for at least 10 years. Our definition of a C-level executive is you're setting policy and then leading large groups of people to execute it. Uh, it is purposefully the whole C-suite. 40% of the group are general managers, CEOs, COOs, division presidents. The other 60% is the rest of the C-suite, literally the rest of the C-suite, attorneys, IT people, HR people, and obviously some CFOs. Uh, if you all have that in common, then your networks are everybody in your network looks at you as you're a C-level person. I mean, it's
Hmm.
not bright someday. Wow, Todd's going to be an amazing CEO someday. It's Todd is an amazing CEO.
Hmm.
The second thing we look for is this pay it forward DNA. You bump into somebody who has a need, you just want to help them. Don't worry about whether it's a quid pro quo. If I so you surround yourself with 500 people who are trying to help you, you're probably going to get some help. Now, in 1998, the group was 65 people. Today, it's 500.
Wow.
Uh, and the third thing that we say is you got to be unemployed to get in, but
Mm.
you join for life.
Okay.
So it starts out with that sort of period in an executive's life, when you're kind of most fragile. I mean, you ask me who I am. You ask me who I was. I said, I'm a CFO. Well, what do I say when I'm unemployed? Um, so it's a tough time in any executive's life when you're in transition, and we can help you through the transition because of all the networks of all those members. And we've built up a whole lot of skills on how to do the focused career networking that you need to do. A whole bunch of skills on how to think through what do I want to do next. Do I really want to do another executive gig?
Hmm.
Or do I want to stay in this industry? Just values clarification stuff. Uh,
Neat.
so those are the three criterion to be in the group. Um, you know, I joined in '98. I landed with Executone within about 3 months. We sold Executone off. Um, Became a quote active member again. Landed with Solution 6 months, 4 months after that, et cetera, et cetera. So you go back and forth between helping out. Well, everybody's helping the people in transition find their next jobs. But when you're in transition, you're really helping.
Wow.
Yeah. So we have 8 TechCXO partners who are also executive forum
Oh,
members.
no kidding. Okay. Yeah.
You just the overlap, 10 years in the C-suite, that's a requirement to join TechCXO. You know, we have our rule number one, no a-holes. That's
Hmm.
kind of the same as pay it forward DNA.
Hmm.
Uh, we require when you join TechCXO, this is a career change. This is not creative job search. Now, I want to change my career and be a fractional CEO, CTO, CEO, whatever. Um, it, and the metaphor on the other side is I am an executive. I just happen to be in transition now, and I'm looking for my next executive role. So there's enough in parallel that I've probably got 2 other executive forum members who are considering joining TechCXO. Just
Wow.
make makes sense for a lot of people.
Yeah. And, and you hear, EO and YPO and Vistage. And, I think it's important to find your tribe and get professional
You bet.
support, not necessarily, you know, in your swim lane in the org chart, but, it's important to, at the executive level, to kind of branch out and have friends in other disciplines who
You
can
bet.
help you.
That's a huge piece of the power of executive forum is it is the whole darn C-suite.
Hmm. That's neat.
So the introductions you get, the advice you get on how to position yourself from somebody who is not in the same functional specialty as you are, um, is just really helpful.
Neat.
I've been there 20, what are we up to? 27 years so far.
Wow.
Uh, and yeah, I,
That's pretty cool.
I'll remain an EF member probably even after I retire.
Yeah.
Uh, just for the fun of giving back to a whole bunch of people who have in common with me that they've been helping set strategy and leading large groups of people to execute.
And the more you get, the more you want to give, or you feel like you should.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Um, Ted, it's been great having you here. It's all about getting out there in the world and making it happen. I imagine you have a couple of really cool travel stories. You got any you want to share with us today?
Very early in my career, I was working at Pfizer and heading up to the Tuck School where I got my MBA to do, recruiting. Yeah, the Tuck School is in Hanover, New Hampshire. You fly into the Lebanon, New Hampshire airport. Um, Pfizer's offices are on the east side of Manhattan. How do I get to Newark Airport to get my flight? Well, I jump on a helicopter at 34th Street, fly over to Newark, way faster than a taxi. And the trains weren't running at the time. Now, somewhere over Jersey City, my helicopter, one of the rotors on the helicopter hit a seagull, which was
Oh no.
very bad for the seagull, but also very bad for the helicopter because
Yeah.
now it had a dent in the end of one rotor,
Mhm.
so it was completely imbalanced. So the rotor's going around like this instead of smoothly. It's rattling all over the place. You can feel the whole helicopter shaking. So the pilot said, "I know what's happening. Look at that, an abandoned baseball field over there." So he swoops over the stands and lands the helicopter thunk right at shortstop in the middle of this abandoned baseball field in Jersey City. And as he's coming into land, he says, "Don't worry, folks, we've had a mechanical problem. We'll get another helicopter in here and get you to Newark right away." Thump, we landed. Well, of course, the Jersey City police did not want two helicopters in their abandoned baseball field, so they had to send a limo for us, and it was rush hour, so we got to Newark late. So I walk up to the New York helicopter desk at Newark Airport and say, "Yeah, hey, I was on the flight ABC," and the girl goes, "Oh my God, you were on the helicopter that crashed." Yes, I was. I still need to get on a plane to go to Lebanon, New Hampshire. Now, can you help me? So she gets onto her computer screen and she says, "Oh, look at that. There's a flight leaving LaGuardia in 45 minutes. Great. I'm at Newark Airport. LaGuardia is a long ways away. Don't worry. We've got another helicopter leaving for there right now." So climbed on the next helicopter, flew over to the 34th Street heliport, landed, picked up a passenger, dropped off a passenger. Helicopter got 100 feet up, 100 feet out over the East River, something, swooped right back down where it started. "I'm so sorry, folks. We'd like you to take that helicopter over there."
Okay.
Climbed on the third helicopter, got to LaGuardia, made the flight, made the substitute flight, got to Lebanon, got to Hanover, interviewed kids. But yeah, I finally got to Hanover about 2 o'clock in the morning, and I called my wife, who was sound asleep, hadn't seen the news, and said, "Lynn, I just wanted you to know I'm okay."
What?
Right? Glad to hear that.
Okay.
I
Wow.
believe in statistics. Helicopters just don't crash that often. So now
Except when they
I
do.
feel- yeah, except when they do.
Yeah.
Obviously I'm here.
Wow. And so what's the final tally on the planes, trains, automobiles count for that trip?
3 helicopters and an airplane,
Okay.
and then an airplane home.
Okay.
So, came back into LaGuardia, I think, and took a cab home. So, yeah.
Yeah. And then you walked for the rest of the week.
Happily, I live 5 blocks from the Pfizer's office in Midtown Manhattan. So walking was what you did.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Well, Ted, it's been great having you here. How can people follow up with you after the show on the internet if they want to get in touch with you?
Yeah. I am still that old school guy who likes email.
Yep.
Ted.stone at TechCXO, that's TechCXO.com. I'm on it all. It's been surgically attached to me, just like it's been surgically attached to everybody who's watching this.
Awesome. Well, Ted, thanks for coming today, and it's been really fun having you.
Oh, my pleasure. Oh, look, my flight's about to leave.
Oh, God, it's duck. Okay, bye for now.
Thanks so much, Todd.
Thanks for joining us in the Sky Lounge. Please like and subscribe to hear more from Tales from the Sky Lounge here and anywhere else you get your podcasts.